going to repeat what after me, okay?
I'm Waylon Wilbur.
Call this finance meeting
Pull this fine meeting
Okay.
to order
to order
on February 2nd,
on February 2nd,
2026.
2026.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
Thank you.
And happy Groundhog Day to Waylon and everyone else. I suspect we have 6 more weeks of winter. That would be my guess from my walk down this morning. Rock and roll.
There we go. I'll keep my updates brief today. I know we had a miss last week. We had a packed agenda, including our legal counsel here. So whenever the legal counsel's here, we want to get our money's worth. And I know council has a lot of questions from our last discussion on police management overtime as we look to formulate a final policy there. So I want to leave a fair amount of time for that. I will note that budget season is picking up pretty rapidly. I think that'll likely be the focus for the council and for our teams over the next 3 or 4 months. For those councilors who haven't been involved in one of these before, I think here it's just Councilor Shea. That's a very busy time around here. An intense amount of staff focus. I'd say the teams have already put in an incredible amount of work to get us where we're at, including thank you to our Deputy IT Director, Nate Burkhart. I got an email, I believe last night, it might have been Saturday, just with the rundown of changes from last year. The whole draft book is compiled digitally, and this year is going to be kind of the first time I'll be able to get a printed copy myself as I make kind of first-round city manager recommendations based on the department head recommendations, and then we'll get that put together pretty quickly and get to a council recommendation at ellsworthmaine.gov/budget. We have the timelines. Once the draft is ready, we'll send it to council and we'll post it publicly at the same time. I think we've done that the last 2 cycles here as a big process change to not just produce a final draft. Actually, there really isn't any, for probably 4 or 5 years, there wasn't any drafts posted online. But we've had our draft versions posted online, final versions posted online. So it's our biggest probably effort of the year, and we're well underway. And with that, I think I'll send it over to Carrie.
She would have to be here in order for you to send it over to her?
Yeah.
I just reached out to Carrie. She's running a little late, so I don't know if we want to.
Why don't we go to your updates
Myself?
first, Nate, and then we can, and then we might just interrupt you
That's fine.
midway through to go to Carrie if we could.
The first thing, we'll just hop down to the section 3 then. Just a quick update. Obviously, the warrant is in front of you. Any questions or comments on the warrant before we move to the next section?
Not seeing any.
Okay. Seeing none, we'll go to the next one. Budget update. I know Charlie just did a brief update on the budget. As he noted, we are in the process. We've got all the department sections updated. We got that book compiled starting next week. Charlie, Sarah, the team will meet with all the department heads, and from there, discuss things that we can work on cutting, obviously, to bring the best budget forward. So like I said, those meetings start next week. Sorry, Carrie's messaged me while we're doing this. She's trying to see if she can teams in. So, Ashley, are you able to send Carrie the Teams link? She's going to try to join virtually.
Yes.
Sorry. Hard for me to message her and do this at the same time. So that's the brief update on the budget. When it comes to the financial update, as you see in front of you, we have the July, the July through December, which is the 6-month rundown. Obviously, this is a little delayed just due to the holiday and the snow day we had a few weeks ago. But this just gives us an update on the 6 months. I can put it on the screen really quick. Let me share this so those in the audience can see this as well. Put this up here. You should see that on the screen as well. This gives you know, as usual, the update for all the accounts going through July, through the end of December. Remember, the highlighted ones are all your revenue accounts. Anything not highlighted is your expense accounts. Everything seems to be trending in a somewhat usual pattern that we've seen in previous months. Nothing really is standing out specifically. This goes all the way down through all the departments, and the percentages, like I said, we're 50% of the way through the year. So everything we should be seeing should be at the 50% mark or less when it comes to expenses. If we hop over and look at the expenses by department, which is also on the screen as well, this one just gives you a better highlighted view of just the expenses. Like I said, I highlighted things in yellow that are over that 50%. Green means that they're under the 50% mark. Red means that they're already over. We only have one expense, one department, which is the streetlights, that is over currently. That was something that was discussed a few council meetings ago, an investment that we made in our streetlights. So in the future, we actually have less expenses from there. So that was something that was agreed upon. So that red 121 is to be expected. Looking down at just the total, our total expenses, we're just over that 50% threshold, 50.1%, which in the grand scheme of things is not too bad considering our overall expenses are 37.5. That means we're roughly $37,000 over budget. And there are some areas that, like capital improvements, we're not going to see too much more coming out of there, which is at 82%, and some other ones as well that are already, we pay earlier in the fiscal year, so we're not going to see that trend go up. So overall, I think everything looks fairly well. Nothing that's too alarming to me, but I will answer any questions that you may have. And Carrie has joined the meeting if we need to send it to her, just so everyone's aware. But I will answer any questions in regards to the finances.
I'm not seeing anything. And just want to highlight what you had said. Some of these things that are showing yellow as over budget, it's simply because the budget is divided by 12, and we knew that. They'd be expended.
Yeah, exactly.
County tax,
Like,
for
I'll just-
instance, we pay once.
Yeah, I'll just highlight something real, like the first line is
Yeah.
legislative, which is a big thing there is the council stipends. Well, council just got their stipends, so when you see it at 63%, we're not gonna have too much more come out of that account for the rest of the year. So that's just one area that, the stipend's already out. So, like I said, that 63%, although it's yellow, it's going to remain probably closer to that 60 to 70% until we get to the end of the fiscal year.
Well, I would hope we're going to invest in some training for the council. But yeah, they should be relatively small investments from here on out. So it's just good to highlight all the yellows aren't necessarily caution flags. Steve?
I'd like to just make a comment. I made this comment last time we saw your charts, which are extremely helpful. I'll say this again, you're going to have departmental situations that are going to bounce up and bounce down and be over and be under. I think the critical point for Mr. and Mrs. Ellsworth is the total expenses are 50.1%, and this is a reading of half a year. So, collectively, this is on the money. Sure, you're going to have departments that are going to sway up and down and have unexpected things and not 12 equal payments and such, but it is exactly on the money at 50.1%. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Cool. Anything else?
Great. Well, maybe before we get to procurement, we'll pause for Carrie and the discussion on the police management overtime. Maybe, Carrie, I'll just kind of give a little bit of background for those that may be new to this conversation. We've been going over the policies. We have some unexpected absences this year in the police department. And it's previously been sort of a past practice, though not in policy, to allow for management overtime during the year for the management groups to take over specific shifts for police officers. So it's not like, say, a city council meeting and a police at a management level, chief, deputy chief, or captain came to a city council meeting late and takes overtime for something like that. It's not. It's just relative to, they've put it out to overtime to the shifts to the unionized part of the police department. There hasn't been any takers, and obviously we don't have a choice when running a 24-hour police department. We have to provide public safety to the citizens here in Ellsworth. It's very important. They're a best-in-class unit across the board, and our chief, deputy chief, and captain on rare occasions will take some overtime for those shifts, and dispatch as well. Our HR director and myself have kind of been going over that previously because, they're considered exempt employees, not necessarily eligible for overtime. We'd sort of thought of it as a past practice, but I know Carrie and I have been somewhat concerned that, we're essentially approving overtime without it really being in ordinance. And have sort of, we came to council a few times ago to discuss it. I think that in general, it seemed like there wasn't much of an appetite to move forward with that policy past the end of the year, that we'd sort of look to sunset that. We heard from some of the police union representatives at a follow-up meeting. I'd say we kind of said, well, actually, there's a lot to this, but maybe if it was, there are specific reasons why it does make sense for management to take overtime shifts to really help the morale of the team, and with unexpected absences, and not put too much without some additional compensation onto the manager in that department, or to force other parts of the organization to take those shifts. We then kind of broadened it out a little bit to, well, if the police department is going to have this policy, should that also apply to some of our other 24/7 departments, like the fire department? The fire department currently doesn't provide overtime to the managers or the non-unionized personnel in that department. They haven't taken, at least from what I've seen. And in my tenure here, Public Works.
I have a question about
Sure.
that. Is the fire department management filling in and taking shifts, or they're just not taking shifts?
I couldn't tell you just offhand on that. But I'll look into it. But
There is a difference.
There's a different, correct. And then we talked about the Public Works Department as well, sort of a 24, but a different type of 24/7 department. Obviously, they have to come in on snowstorms, emergencies, on call for water, wastewater, which happen extraordinarily frequently, I'd say, in terms of overtime, and managers putting in overtime. Brian Moon, our highway foreman, is, by leaps and bounds, has taken an incredible amount of overtime over the last 4 or 5 storms here. So. And in a department, too, that really only has one non-union manager in the entire department for handling things. So, but I know Carrie, we'd had some follow-up discussions, expressed some reservations. Carrie came into the group and really did a great job the last Finance Committee meeting on some of the red flags here on cost, and that, when this is sort of a do-not-go-back moment, when you change policy permanently like this, that's where it kind of lands. Also had some follow-up discussion with our attorney, and maybe Carrie, if you have anything else to add before we send it to Mr. Hamer on kind of his recommendation here.
I don't have anything else to add at this time. Thank you.
And just maybe a little more, I know, Steve, you'd reached out to some other police departments beforehand. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seemed to be kind of a mix of, like, there hadn't really been.
You're asking if I did?
Yeah, you're.
I did. I reached out to a handful, and I found that if there are many of the officers in other departments that wished that their management team would fill in shifts so they could have somewhat of a family life, well, especially the younger officers that aren't as work-minded as maybe it was when I was young, because they have families and they're not as driven financially, this generation, as past generations. And in one case, the union went to management and asked them to pick up some of these shifts. And the management said, no. So consequently, they have had people leave that department because management didn't care about their employees' personal lives. So that's something to consider.
Great, and before, maybe we'll send it over to John for kind of his recommendation here. I know that's kind of where I'm at. I can see both sides of this one. I know there's been a lot of internal staff management discussion on fairness and managers and hours. And I'm kind of, I've come to be somewhat agnostic on this one. If we want to do it and move forward, let's get the cost estimates on it, have council approve a new ordinance that puts it in the book, so I know Carrie and myself don't feel like we're approving something that's not in the official ordinances. But no, council needs a full kind of recommendation and information to probably make that decision. So with that, I'll send it over to Mr. Hamer.
Good morning. So when I originally had looked at this question, I had some concerns that allowing an exempt employee to put in for overtime could jeopardize the exemption. I did some research and I found a provision, a regulation that says that's not the case, that the employees who are doing the performance or performing their normal duties of an executive officer, someone who's running a division and supervising employees and so forth, they are able to take a separate shift that's not the same kind of duties that they're previously doing. So if you're in the fire department and you're the fire chief, and you're doing something that has to do with the operation of the department itself and managing employees, that's all underneath your exempt position, and that is all covered by your salary. But if that chief then is called out and then is required to go and man a hose on a fire or something like that, something that's not part of that person's normal duties, then it is permissible within your discretion to have an arrangement to pay overtime for that shift. So at this point, since it's legally permissible, it really is a question of policy. Is that something that you think is appropriate for a person to do? You might want to consider how many hours is a person working in an exempt position. There's an expectation that it's going to be more than 40, but if a person's not actually keeping track, then maybe you don't know for sure how many hours it is. Those are some of the more technical issues that can be worked out. So the question is, and I think, Steve, you hit the nail on the head there. The question is it appropriate for management to be helping out line unit folks in their jobs? And if the union isn't complaining about it, which years ago would have been the case, but if the union's actually asking for it, then maybe there is a way to make it work. My only other concern is that if you've got a management level person performing overtime, then that's a very expensive shift, just because the manager's salary is going to be fairly high, and that means their base wage is probably going to be fairly high as well. But those are issues that can be worked out. The question is this something you want to do? How's that for a non-answer?
That was great.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think John, your first piece on the is it legally recommended to do if that other exemption piece wasn't found.
Yeah, until I found this regulation, I would have said this is not something that's permissible, but there is a regulation, so the DOL has decided that's okay.
Could you use the long term instead of the acronym?
Department of Labor.
Thank you.
Good. So now we just got to make a policy that would set forth in case we run into another situation where we're not fully staffed to be able to.
If you're going to allow this, I definitely recommend a written policy so that we can have some, we know when it would apply and if there are any restrictions you want to have on it. Maybe a couple of shifts is fine, but maybe 8 or 10 shifts isn't. But all of those could be put into a policy.
Did you raise your hand, Gary?
Now, Carrie, you were looking like maybe you wanted to speak? Or you're just fascinated by the conversation? Okay. I think
No, I'm all set, thank you.
Okay. One of the other questions that factors into this is what about other management in other, I don't know if you want to call them front-facing, but we're talking about police, fire, and public works versus your team, which also puts in hours for your, it's interesting, the distinguishing between your existing job, which is a lot broadly, versus when police management takes a shift, which is different from their normal assignments. And that's an interesting distinguishing point that I think works with Public Works, where you've got the guy who manages the team versus being in a plow truck. And the same with fire. I don't know how that compares with other departments. So how broadly are we looking at doing this, at figuring out what the policy should be?
I mean, I would leave that to council. I'd say there has been issues of fairness brought up. I know police work is very different than other types of work. But there are management level employees, that you all see, and they'll be here tonight doing overtime on, for all of their items. They're here late at night. They're emailing them with me on the weekends. They do an incredible amount of work. But it's not a 24/7, and it's also not, I wouldn't say mission critical. It's mission critical to you see all the city council agenda items that we have on things, the comprehensive plan, all of that falls on the general government side of the equation in public works. Not all of that, but I'd say 95% of those items that we bring forward at council meetings are in that category. But that's, I think until this issue was brought up, nobody was talking about it. It's, you're a management level employee, you don't expect overtime, you get a salary, you negotiate that salary, and overtime is just sort of considered part of the gig.
But I agree, coming to a city council meeting is part of your job if you're the part of the management team. But if they are taking shifts, the same as we're talking about with police, I'm hearing a distinguishing between part of your job is to be sitting in a seat here as we're talking about it versus taking a shift. And are those differences in the other two? We've been talking public works and fire.
Yeah, and shifts, it's one of the interesting things too, right? Our public works is probably the only other large department with the shift sort of component with it. Although the clerks do, I know Sue's out there a lot of time taking shifts. We don't, they're management level employees, so it's the other kind of form change, and we'll have to think about this as a policy. Do we need to consider or start treating the management of the police department in sort of an hourly way, right? So as a manager, you're just, if one of the clerk's office's employees calls out sick or can't be there, or Sue works to have her team take over those shifts, or she might actually have to be in there. Would we consider that part of something that going forward that Sue should try to track her hours and see if she should be in there? Or really, I think, just keep this tailored to public safety, which is a 24/7 department, or the police department. Fire doesn't have this issue currently, whether they do take shifts on occasion or whether they don't. They certainly aren't asking for overtime, or they haven't been receiving overtime. The one area where I would put this into the fairness and the resourcing category would definitely be in the public works department, especially with Brian. I think it's, we're considering OpenGov and some digital modernization on the public works side of things to track workflows, to track costs better, to track procurement. We're doing procurement pieces. We're doing. We need a big upgrade to kind of go from paper-based systems, as we talked about, across our public works systems. But there are certain employees, managers, who take those shifts. Our public works director, but most probably significantly is our highway foreman. I was thinking of that, we have in the police department, we have 3 managers, a chief, a deputy chief, a captain, and a pretty large computer apparatus to track workflows and all those people, are those pieces. And, every single storm that I've been at, I've seen our highway foreman, working his tail off, plowing, up until the middle of the nights. We basically have him when he doesn't really have a job where he's not taking a shift every single day of his life. So that's an aspect. If we did move forward with this policy, I'm not quite sure we'd want to have a separate carve out for the public works side of things when those managers do, but that is an area that I think, outside of the general government, if we did move forward with this, that we would want to look at kind of rectifying that fairness issue as well. The general government, I could see, was just splitting it up. If you're a general government management level employee, overtime is part of the deal. If you're a public safety or public works manager that there could be a policy that would incorporate that unit as well from a fairness perspective. And then, we have to cost estimate all these out. All these things will cost, additional funds if we want to go that route, or we could just keep it to a very narrow, the current kind of policy, which has been happening for years. We just codify that into ordinance for the police department, which is the request here, and we just stick to the most narrow, financially, cost-effective.
I guess, go ahead, Steve. I'm going to say, a question, I guess, as we're looking whether it's, I'm trying to look at police and public works, since this is where the focus is. Both are looking to hire more. I know that there's one, I think, truck driver being advertised, or was last I knew. Are we headed in a direction where there will be sufficient staff for police, where this won't be as necessary? And it seems with public works, when you've got a storm, it really is all people on deck. But can this be fixed with reaching a point where we've got adequate staff? So a question, we've got plenty of people in the audience who I hope will have a chance to speak to this.
Yeah, we can bring up, I'd say, between the fire department, we've added, I think, 10 over the last 6 years, might be 9, but that was a large part of the ambulatory upgrade. Carrie, I don't know if you know offhand and how many police officers have been added over the last 4 or 5 years. But, my tenure here, there was, in public safety, that last cycle, there was 2 firefighters, 1 dispatcher, 1 additional police officer. I think the year before that, there was 1 additional police officer, 2 firefighters. I wasn't here the prior years to that. But if you look at the kind of 5-year spending trends, with the new police station, with the addition of the ambulatory service, that piece. Now, we have best in class in the entire city, but that is the cost. And it's multiple $1 million more per year in public safety and that staffing piece. I haven't seen overtimes sort of decrease, but there's been some special circumstances this year. And this isn't, a huge amount of money in the near term on the 2 or 3 managers in the police
All right.
department.
It looks like this is a fix to a problem, but we really got to get down to the cause of the problem, which may be staffing. So I know we can get some input
Sean,
from
you
the
wanna-
audience. Steve, is this related to this question?
I'm sorry?
Did you want to speak related to this?
I do.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to say 6 weeks ago, I got a call from Charlie, and he shared with me that the management of the police department was taking shifts for overtime. And I'm like, what? Isn't that their job? Could you bring them to the finance department so I could learn more about this? And when they came, finance department, finance committee, they came before the finance committee, and I learned that on the surface, it sounded bad, but when I heard their side of it, I'm like, wow, I understand this now. And shooting from the hip, it sounded horrible. But when I heard from them, it sounded necessary for the longevity of the crew and the shortness of the staff. And so I understood it far better after hearing from the people involved than I did from our phone call, and I passed a judgment from the hip that, and I'm glad I said I'd like to hear from them because they presented a whole different picture. And that brings us to where we are today. And I had suggested that we let this ride until June 30th because it's been going on a long, long, long time. Way back when Albert Carter was the police chief, I went and talked to him. And this stuff has been going on a long time. And that was prior to the generation of only wanting to work 40 hours a week, no extra shifts, no nothing. And here we are in a time frame where you've got young people, I'm not bashing young people, but they have a different mindset. They have a better quality of life. They have a balance of family and work. And when I learned more about this, I'm like, this makes sense. And I think that we should stick these conversations by department. I don't think we should blend each department in one policy, because each department is different, okay? Public Works, for example, signed up to plow snow at night. The police are doing their day shifts, and the extra shifts aren't being filled for lack of personnel. Now, you've got a 52% budget with the police department that we were given today. We're 52% we're halfway through the year, and we get a 52% expense, okay? What would that expense be if we eliminated what's going on and staffed another 4 people, or whatever the number is? You'd have to ask these guys to fill these gaps. And I think we need to look at department by department, and if departments feel that they want to be looked at, that's fine. But if you want the benefits of the police, then become a police officer. If you want the benefits of a city manager, then become a city manager. If you want the benefits of a clerk, then become a clerk. And I think these need to be looked at on an individual basis. I'm not against somebody taking a shift, in this case, or to use your case, the fire chief running the fire hose and not managing the fire, but working on the fire. Maybe there needs to be something about the fire department. But I think grouping all of this together is a big mistake. You may be addressing problems that don't exist. Let the department heads bring that before the council, and let there be some decisions made based on what you said. But, what's the number? Is it $400,000 more to eliminate this problem? I'm guessing it's at least that.
No, I would put it in the kind of converse. I think, that this is already being paid for with the budget. So if we eliminated this policy and basically which would be to ask the 3 managers there to take these shifts on occasion. I mean, these aren't an enormous amount of shifts. Sean can speak to that, how many there are.
I'm not saying they are. Please don't put words in my mouth.
No,
What I'm saying.
I'm saying if we eliminated this policy and required the managers to take the shifts without funding, we'd be at 51.9%. We wouldn't, this isn't a huge cost savings or really cost addition because it's currently happening. So there's
Well,
really
what
no
I'm-
change in the budget.
Where I'm going with this is to eliminate this behavior. You're talking $400,000 to $600,000 increased budget to eliminate this behavior, because you
No.
have to hire more people.
No, I don't, what do you
Well, I
mean?
think, let's ask the police.
Yeah, you can come forward, Sean. I'm not quite sure about that. We pay about $250,000, I think, in overtime per year in addition to this, already baked into the budget.
What I'm saying is, if they're not taking their shifts, the longevity of the employee is going to erode. And retention is far easier than recruitment.
And just before we go to you to help factor in what you're going to address, I guess, Steve, my version of what you're asking would be, what is the cost differential? I know we're trying to hire more staff, but the cost differential of overtime, I don't know what the dollar value is, so what's the scope of the problem? What is the difference between paying overtime to management versus the hiring that's underway? So you've heard all the questions and conversation. What can you offer?
Good morning.
Good morning.
First of all, I'd like to thank Charlie and Carrie for getting John here so we could actually hear what the law said and the fact that it wasn't illegal, which we'd heard several times. So I'm glad that was actually clarified. So I'm just going to talk about 2025, January to December. Myself, the chief, and the captain covered 27 patrol shifts and 26 dispatch shifts throughout that year.
Collectively.
Collectively, yes, not each, collectively. Based on the average overtime of the department, The city paid us an extra, instead of forcing somebody to work those shifts, an extra $155.28 per shift. So we're not talking tens of thousands
Okay.
of dollars that, that we've heard thrown around. So $155 per one of those shifts extra, based on the average overtime of somebody being forced to work that shift that we took.
So that's the differential, I want to make sure I understand you, the differential between officer average overtime and your overtime?
Correct.
Got it,
For,
thank you.
for those 27 patrol shifts and
Right.
26 dispatch shifts. To Steve's point, I think what he's talking about is if we were to try to eliminate the majority of overtime or have extra people when we have vacancies. Currently, we have 2 patrol vacancies. We have one person out on extended medical leave. We've had another person out for over 90 days on medical leave. They're back. We had 2 30-day medical leaves this budget. And so that's really, put the hurt on things. So that's where some of these 27 shifts in patrol and 26 shifts in dispatch come from. If you were to try to upstaff, the way the schedule is built, you would need 4 additional patrol people. A patrol person is about $81,400 base pay, not including benefits.
Can you say that figure again?
$81,400 base
Plus
pay,
benefits.
not including benefits.
Got it.
And we're probably, what, Carrie, do you know what's our benefit piece? Probably 110, 120 for base, yeah. But then you add the overtime, which, I'd say, we already have baked into the system. This is one of the things, this is probably besides the fire department, the place where we've had the largest staffing increases in the city over the last 5 years. And,
More than City Hall?
oh, yeah, alone.
I doubt that.
I mean, I could get you the figures for it, but yeah, last budget cycle is a good example. We added a dispatcher, 2 firefighters, and a police officer to the payrolls in the city hall, and we added a our Parks and Recreation director as an additional staff member in the last budget cycle, and a facilities assistant, but we canceled 2 contracts for cleaning, which was the bringing in the facility assistant. So we were 2X on public safety hires versus City Hall, and the 5-year look back. And that's where the expense piece too. I also have noted many times here that we get what we pay for in the city of Ellsworth. I think I noted it in my city council report on 2025, is that this is a best-in-class team. I had to do, and actually a lot of our staff has had to be involved in a lot of business process redesigns of departments over the last year and a half. The police and fire departments and dispatch have not been one of them. Sure, they're making process improvements, Sean and Troy, and that entire police officer team are making incredible process improvements, but I'd put our police department and fire departments, and it's one of the big benefits of living in Ellsworth versus living in Castine, where you don't have ambulatory care from the fire department right there, where you don't have a 24/7 police officer unit to be able to help in the near term. It's one of the huge benefits of actually living in this city. It's the only place in the region which has, I think, that quality of a group. But it is an area that is our largest expenses. And, that's part of this policy too. We'd like to bake it into policy and have it approved by the city council. I know, Sean, your piece on, is it legal? It's out of ordinance, so we need to make sure that we have it in our ordinance, and that Carrie and I don't feel like we're kind of approving something on the side that's not there. That's what this is about.
I just add, in 2020, we had 18 officers, and currently today we have 21. That's what we've added over since 2020.
And from my point of
So
view.
officer, is that all including management, or is it
Yes, that's everybody.
everybody?
That's our
21.
We had 18 and we're currently 21.
How many did you add at City Hall?
So,
About that same amount for just
my
that department.
perspective, and I've worked in the public sector. I worked for Maine DOT, snow plowing. And we work very closely with the local police departments, as county and state police. But the whole time I was in a plow truck or supervising people for DOT and the state of Maine, it's apples and grapefruit. that plow truck does not become emergency response vehicle. Okay? And I was, when I said, okay, go ahead, managers, let's go with the staffing of overtime by you guys. Was one, I was kind of hoping it was going to be, wasn't going to cost that much, okay? Because I put my trust and faith in you, and you showed that. It's not that expensive. But when managing people and you got people going out on sick, and you got people getting done, and all of that, you got to have the coverage. The police and fire are totally different. And then from Public Works or any other department, okay? And the police department is actually different than the fire department, okay? So, but in a perfect world, you'd have everybody that you possibly want showing up every day. But seeing how we don't live in a perfect world because we've got colors. If it was perfect, it'd be black and white. You see what I mean? And on the other side of me too is from being, you know, a supervisor of people. You, by the police department's management of doing that, I bet you've probably increased your morale by taking shifts for people, for, you know, patrol officers and dispatchers that have been busting their butt to make sure everybody's safe. You see what I mean? While also keeping the cost relatively reasonable. I mean, you guys all talk with your staff, you know, because it's, you know, communication is very big when you're dealing with that kind of stuff, that kind of work that you guys do. So, if, and I would rather see us put something in place as far as a rule so that when you do get into a place like this, it's used judiciously.
So what I'm hearing is, and Council Craig, I know we don't make decisions at these finance
No.
committee meetings. It's
But
just a
it'd
good
be
opportunity for us
Good
to.
recommendation to put forth to a workshop and put something on the council agenda.
Yeah, and I think, this is our third council discussion of this, and obviously there's been a lot of internal staff deliberations. I'm also looking forward to getting behind this piece, because it's, in the grand scheme of the things we do, this is.
I do like to see the numbers the way they're at, you know what I mean? I was worried that it was gonna be, but you don't know when you're dealing, these guys go out there and they could have a banner day and all kinds of calls and from bad to extremely worse.
So I think what I'm hearing is we'll keep this a narrow focus. We'll not move forward on some of the other pieces unless other counselors would like that option presented on just to the police department's overtime and really just kind of codifying this past practice into ordinance. Carrie will do a budget estimation on what that will be. And so, like I said before, it's already baked into this year's current budget, so it really should be no change in the budget. And even if we eliminate this practice, this isn't a huge budget saving. It's just codifying into our ordinances management for the exempt employee. Now that we've heard from Mr. Hamer that that's an allowable, I'll work on what piece that was, John, and then we'll come back to a future council meeting with just that narrow ordinance change. And we'll keep it as that. And to your point, Steve, the other budget processes, if people want to recommend changes or also follow this piece, they're welcome to come forward and ask for counsel. I'm not recommending that, but that's what
Let
could
the
go forward.
departments be the departments. If you're gonna blend everything, then you don't have departments. So let the departments be
Yeah.
the departments. There is one thing that I would like, I'm sure there's a lot of people that wanna speak, and I'm not trying to slow that down in any way, shape, or form. But I'd like to speak to I'd like to hear from the youngest officer here in the, come
The
on.
one hiding behind the other officer.
Yeah, and I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Would it be
but-
better if I give you my insurance and
No,
registration?
no, it
and-
wouldn't.
No,
Okay.
I'd like to hear, because I've talked to a lot of young officers in other places, and driving up when you see a detail, and you drive up and ask a question, and I'd like to hear from the youngest, or the youngest here.
I would say I'm the youngest here, by
Okay.
probably, maybe other than Waylon, but, yeah.
Waylon's already spoke.
True, I'll give you that. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely something, I hope we agree to do. I'm one of the evening supervisors right now and the vice president of the union, the patrol union, and there's not an officer that I've heard voice against this. As Deputy Chief Willie said, this isn't a lot of money, but it goes a long ways for the officers. We've got several officers that are getting ready to have kids, several officers that have very young kids. I'm currently out on some time off right now because I just had a second child myself, and I know the Deputy Chief has taken a shift or two that would have gone uncovered from what I've taken off, and that would have been another officer forced into that shift that they don't necessarily want to do that. They don't want to take that time away from their family. So this is definitely something that goes a long way for keeping morale high. It's high right now. Everybody's very happy with where they're at. Everybody's enjoying how the department's running. So I think it would be a huge thing to keep it the way it is.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Could I say one other thing? I want to be super clear about this. You have a supervisor, management, taking a shift. And this is on the honor system. And I can't believe that you wouldn't be honorable with this. There are certain management duties that come outside of 8 to 5. And if you're taking a shift to help the department in a staff, and there is a management situation that comes up, I would simply ask that you be honest with that in the shift. So, the bus accident is something that I'm sure that people may have heard about, a bus accident that wasn't on duty and went there or what have you. You know, that's a management job. Or I heard the officer shooting incident at one time. That's a management job. So if management's taking a shift and all of a sudden there's a disaster, you need to go into your management position, not an hourly position. That's on the honor system in my world. You know, you took a shift, it's a 10-hour shift, 8-hour shift, 12-hour shift, whatever it might be, to help the overall picture. Every officer's towing the wagon. But when that event comes up that you normally would have been to for 5 hours or whatever it might be, my wish is that that goes into your normal salary and you stop the clock. I don't know what people think about that, but I think that that's important.
Yeah, well, we'll work on kind of what the actual ordinance, you know, now that it'll be codified, would be in there. You know, again, to your point, Steve, like, I trust this group. They when they bring me things, they are always of the most serious nature for the decision point. And they do an incredible job, and honestly, like, even though the difficulty of the work that they do, like, I get a very few amounts of complaints or issues. You know, that's government by nature. Whether you're arresting somebody or why you're asking somebody to pay their taxes, it's not exactly the you know, the thing people like to have happen when they had to have an interaction with government like that. But they are an incredible group, and I don't necessarily want to think of the managers like hourly employees. And hey, they put in 32 hours this week, they put in 60 hours the next week, getting those shifts. But so I'll just think more about it, Steve, on that functionality. Like you said, I really do trust this group, and when they take a shift, it's for the
Okay.
purpose. Nobody's taking it in the group. They don't want to force somebody in. They work together as there's a 3-person management team to see who, can come in for that shift, and they do so honorably. That's what they've done. I've no, that's not my complaint now, is that I feel like they're taking excessive amounts of shifts for people that don't exist. So that's not it. It's just getting it in the ordinance, having a policy for it happen, making sure that it's legally sound and not, hugely financially impactful. And the fairness aspect, we're not going to, if we keep it pretty narrow to here, I think this is a pretty straightforward policy to go by.
I'd like to hear from Troy. You walked down to the front. I'm guessing you might want to say something or not? I'm sorry I've hogged the time, but
You did take the effort to walk down here. I didn't know, maybe these guys were picking on you.
No, they weren't picking on me. No, it's just been kind of listening. I just came down when Sean was up here in case there was something else that came up. Just, these are the same questions that we've been answering right straight through and through. I mean, to Steve's point, absolutely. I mean, we've had those scenarios come out that you talked about. We don't, the three of us come in on what's expected in our job descriptions. We have very distinct job descriptions for each one of us, and that's really a starting point for this, I think, when you're gonna have this policy out. Anything outside that job description is what we're talking about, covering the shift. No, we're not talking about coming in for an officer involved shooting, coming in for some kind of major operation. That's what we're expected to do, that's what we do, and that's what we will do. We're expected to come to these meetings after hours. That's what we do. We don't take pay for them. But, in the end, like I said, we're just asking once in a while to help out, and when we do something above and beyond what's in our job description, that's pretty much what we're moving forward for.
Is it safe to say that when you're pulling these shifts, you have a regular officer uniform on?
That's correct. The guys working the road. I mean, I very rarely, I only worked it twice last year. Technology on the road has kind of gotten ahead of me. So,
I can't spell the word.
So I myself, I will fill in at dispatch once in a while. Dave and Sean will fill in on the road when needed.
Uniform.
In uniform, yeah, they're just.
That's a
like they're dressed now.
distinguishing part, correct?
Yeah, they have the body cams, they have everything a patrol person would have, no difference.
All right, anything else? I think a couple of points have been made. It's been, at least 3 finance committee meetings, but it's been worth it. This is, as was said, it's not black and white. I think we all understand it better now.
And we get the numbers of what it's cost.
Yeah, and I think we're narrowing in on
And
keeping.
that's a big part of the picture, is knowing what
Right.
what the differential is.
Right, getting the policy to match, policy and what's happening should match, and then the cost implications are part of it as well, and I think we've got those pieces.
Yeah, and keeping the narrow focus here, I think, as it relates to Public Works and this other one, that is the one, with only one manager in that entire department, also taking so many shifts. I know, Councilor Shea, it is a different category, but to me, we get what we pay for on both sides of those things. When you have one manager who's taking shifts every single day of his life, and then somebody's got to organize the work, send out those pieces. And to your point, Steve, that's not necessarily going to be solved here through giving somebody, even if we did apply this to Public Works, which we'll keep it narrow, that's not really a solution for that problem here. It might have been brought up, that problem, but.
There's a reason they're departments.
Well, anyways,
Yeah, I still want to get to procurement. I know back to Nate, your side of things. We've only got a couple more minutes here. But Nate, if you want to talk about procurement, we might have to table this a little bit to next week so we can get more in the weeds. I know I have a lot on this too.
Can we not just continue the meeting for those of us that can stay?
We have Arbor Commission for Tabitha or,
and I have work. I've got my own meetings for work, so I.
yeah, I have a meeting. Oh, actually,
We can
you know,
still
my meeting's
talk
with
about
you,
it.
Steve, so I think we can
Still
delay.
talk about it.
Well, let's do it in the time we've got,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I'll just hop on really quick with the procurement piece. I'll keep it short and sweet. Basically, I believe you have the policy, the current policy in front of you, the procurement policy. This will be updated, and that's kind of what this is about. It's just to let you know that myself, Ashley, Sarah, and Sue Lassard, who's our financial consultant, kind of just going over the current procurement policy, ways that we can update this when it comes to bid processes, purchase orders, dollar amounts, who has approvals, kind of tweaking some things. So like I said, we met with Sue last week, I believe it was last week, kind of ironed out some things. Our goal is to have an updated procurement policy presented here, probably in the next few weeks. We should have one ready, and then we can bring this to council for approval. But this was just solely just to let you guys know that we're working on this procurement policy, and we will have one updated and ready to go.
Are you anticipating any change in the amount? Right now, it's $15,000. Anything beyond that goes through the RFP process. Are you pushing or thinking, or what's the spirit there?
I wouldn't say I'm pushing. In talking with Sue Lassard, her thoughts are we probably should raise that to 25 instead of 15. Like I said, these are her recommendations based on the cities and towns that she's worked with, including obviously Bucksport, where she came from. So her goals are, like I said, are to move kind of all the thresholds from 15,000 to 25 is her recommendations.
Thank you.
Yep.
I don't know, if you could bring up some of the screenshots that I sent you, if it's possible. I was having trouble trying to put up some of my slides from in here. I know, yes, I've seen, I don't know if that's the red line version or just the original procurement
No,
policy.
so we don't have any.
So I've seen, I know Sarah and team are working on a red line version of that with Sue Lassard. This is really, you can see it's kind of geared to be frank, like as if this is 1975.
I was just
and
gonna ask,
we're
when's the
all
last time it
smoking
was
cigarettes
updated?
in here and opening, bids for construction projects around the big table to be mailed in, and it's really kind of focused on bids for construction, not requests for proposals, requests for questions, requests for information. It's not like an RFP outlined process that's robust and significant. It's really kind of tailored towards that, if we're going to do a road project or a big capital project for people to bid on something specific. That's one of the reasons that in December, we are moving forward with a new RF or a new procurement system, which also includes contracting. That's, I think, in some ways a lot as important, and we're just going to have a lot more input in the procurement policy as well. Right now, example for our real estate procurement, this is kind of a department head will need to procure something or ask for a proposal. They'll email me, hey, I'm looking to do this. How should we have some templates? Here's some ones from the past. For a real estate proposal, that's pretty from scratch. We don't really have a lot of bids that or anything like that or templates. Sue's looking online, I'm assuming. Here's our procurement policy. Please read this so that it's there. She sends it to me. I edit it. She gets it back. She edits it, sends it back to me. I edit it again. We try to get it in the system. It goes out into this, gets posted online by either IT or maybe our communications director. Where there's it could be emailed over to Ebony with the subject line with it, and then she isn't supposed to open it, or it actually has to be mailed in or dropped off in person. Incredibly cumbersome, time-consuming, and also not as transparent as it should be. Sometimes we've had in council meetings, there's multiple bids, but did they get included in the packet? This digital system will change all of that. It's going to basically have templates for every single piece that we put together. We'll probably have a first run at it in 2 weeks of a draft template, so I can tell Sue next time around, just here's the template. We can modify it for your needs. But this is kind of one of the scoping meetings we just had on just delays, manual reviews, missed bids. It was interesting to talk to OpenGov because they do this with cities and towns across the country, and oftentimes when you're getting to this point, it's because you're here. There's not visibility into the sourcing or renewals. That's another big piece. Like for me, procurement, 15,000 over is one piece of it, but if we're doing $10,000 in chemicals a month and we haven't reviewed our chemical bids or contracts in 2 or 3 years, we don't even have the data to know if how that's gone forward. So this will be able to say, okay, we just contracted with this piece, put a reminder in the logic in the system to look at it again in a year, so that we can make sure that like that bid is actually like, is re-outsourced. You know, there's certain things we send out almost every year, like line painting. I'm asking the team to get the line painting bid out there. It's just gonna also just make this so much more efficient. You know, legal review too, I'll send it to John, and then we can have standardized contracts, standardized legal review timeframes. It'll send it out to legal. They'll actually have to say, hey, it's been done. The hiring and scoring committees of all these proposals. So, you know, Sue will receive this. We'll put together an ad hoc committee. We can do that all in the system, and you literally can't go to the next step based on the logic of the system unless you've followed the procurement piece. And then you link that back to finance too. It'll just basically have a systemic solution to this issue, so that, you know, we're basically, it took 25 years, but we'll be bringing Ellsworth into the 21st century when it comes to procurement, from lower and higher, and all around. So I'm really, really excited about kind of where we're going. It's going to be also it's not just build a system and then send people the information too. Like, all our department heads are going to have to be trained on it. It will probably require a further update to our procurement policy, and just, you know, here's all the logic of the system. It's also going to be really transparent for the council and for the community too, though. You know, Jared will be able to come in here, Roger will be able to come in here, and Ray, who I know will be in here, will be able to say, hey, give me like all the last procurements over the past, you know, 6 months, and I'll be able to issue a report on that super easy. We might be able to bring that as part of the finance committee meeting, just like we've done with the budget, on this like super transparent monthly accounting. Here's where we're at. You know, when the bids, there's a little toggle, you can say sealed bid. So like the system, even if I wanted to go in there and see who in the world's bidding on this, I wouldn't be able to until the sealed bid process opens. And when the sealed bid timing ends, it'd send it to myself, but then all of the city councilors would also see any of the sealed bids. So we're not gonna have to have Ebony trying to work with councilors' schedules on when they can be in person to see an envelope opened up. It's gonna be extraordinarily robust in that way, and I'm super excited about it, so.
What's your time frame, and are you anticipating this going first workshop and then a meeting?
Yeah, I'm probably just gonna keep bringing it to finance committee meetings, in terms of like where we're at with the procurement process and the system. I've asked for 2 weeks to have the first kind of template available, and then this also is gonna include like a vendor sign-up form. I think one of the other improvements here is, you know, we get a lot of one bidder on an item. We try to put it on MMA's website, we try to put it on other websites, we try to do, you know, call around to see if, encourage people to bid, but part of that's being in this part of rural Maine, is there's just not a lot of competitive bidders out there. But also, this system will allow us to have like vendors pre-sign up for things, and also our system itself, if you've got to be a realtor and, you know, and mail in a bid or print it out and bring it to City Hall, you're like, do I really want, like, as opposed to just being, oh, there's a bid, here's the online intake forms, I'll put in the bid on it. So we can have vendors sign up. Anytime there's a new bid, it'll email all the vendors. Anytime there's a new bid posted or a proposal or request for information added, it can, you know, if city councilors want to sign up for any time it goes live, they just get automatically emailed. So it'll provide a lot more transparency and accountability in the system too, so.
Cool. All right.
Sorry, I went a little over there.
No, it's fine. Anything else on the agenda? We take a minute or two. Any other questions or broad comments from the council or from the committee? Anybody from the public? Yep, come on up. Maybe you want to retrieve a family member while you're here.
Seems pretty busy right at the moment, but sure.
He's got some nice art going
He's a
on.
really good artist.
Yeah.
He is a good artist.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it's not portraits of people he's sitting in. Yeah.
Morning, Jared, resident. I just wanted to touch base. I didn't know if the electric charging stations down there are a line item in the budgets, as they are like a form of income that comes in to show when the investment will be paid off on those charging stations or whatnot.
We do have them in the budget as a line item for an expense and
Okay.
revenue coming in.
I must have overlooked it then.
And I think the council order at some point in time was to reimburse the capital account. I think the net delta between grants was about 10,000. Now, you could count that two ways, right? We were spending about $7,000 a year for free electricity
Yeah.
before we added the paid chargers on VIX. So a year into that, we're net positive $7,000. So we've only got one more year to go before those, as a city practice, effectively become budget positive. But we also want to just generate, and we're keeping track of it, so. We'll have those as a budgeted and actual for this cycle. That's one of the nice things about having this great finance team that's done so much work putting these systems together is all this stuff gets tracked, so.
Cool.
But we're also doing some solar credit reconciliation. Maybe we'll probably have an update later on that. We might be able to maybe pre-budget cycle, just do a little update there.
And I haven't heard anything about fundraising for the track lately. I didn't know we get an update on that.
Yeah, I don't have one for y'all right now, but I can provide one later on.
Okay. And ordinance 56, we're going to be addressing that here in the next little
Come
bit.
on down, 6 o'clock tonight, hour
that
long, leading up, 600-page document, lots of red lines, 2 or 3 kind of larger process improvements on the business-friendly side of things and the citizen-friendly side, I'd say, that you might be interested in. Obviously, you can check it out. If you can't make it in person, we post them to the web, they're live, and then they are also recorded and, put onto the YouTube channel as well. So we budgeted a full hour of the workshop tonight for our consultants to report out, and Danielle and Brittany, our team in the planning department, have just been, I can't tell you how many hours of meetings they've had in this 600-page document. I've had 2 or 3 discussions, so.
And I'll add to that happily at 8 o'clock this morning, Danielle sent out a summary of the changes because reading the 600-page document was a little intimidating. So having that summary is going to be helpful.
So we'll get that kind of first round feedback, and then I don't think we've dialed in exactly the workshop or the city council meeting it'll come back in. Maybe we're all in kind of good alignment, and it can be kind of in the April timeframe for it to be codified into law. But and I'll have an update for you too on impact fees. That's a little bit outside of scope here, but I've got a solution for you, or for the council to see too.
Jared, if you want to turn around, looks like we've got an answer. Nate, did you bring that up, I assume?
There it is.
Yep.
Awesome.
There's the revenue and expenses right here, so,
Cool.
but want to make sure you get, see that it's on page 22, so when you,
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thanks, all.
yeah.
Thanks for the detail.
Awesome. Well, you guys have a great day.
Thank you, Jared.
Thank you, Jared.
All right, we are adjourned.
Oh, from the other people.
Nobody else raised their hand.